Is it true that if you're good enough, you're old enough these days? Because that's certainly how the young snots who work with you and who are some of your younger clients, that's how they feel about it. They come across with that arrogance, don't they? And it's kind of happened over the last 10 years or so. There hasn't been a magic switch that's kind of switched on and just suddenly these new guys have entered the office. I can't point to a date and a time and tell you that's when it happened. But if you think back over the last decade or so, something has started to change. A new generation of young people have come into the office and they have changed the way that the office is structured. They've changed the expectations that people have of the office, and they've certainly changed the expectations of their relationship with you, if we talk about them as your clients. Jack Welch, the legendary CEO of General Electric, after he retired, was interviewed by Newsweek and was asked, what is it that's changed? If you look back, Jack, at all of the things that had happened to you when you were starting out, and now look at today's young managers, what's the biggest difference? And he kind of said something along these lines. When he was young, you know those famous words, when I was young, starting out in this industry, there was no thought about how hard you would work. As a manager, a young junior manager, you were expected to work overtime. And you did without even thinking about it. There was a rule that you could only leave the office 10 minutes after your boss had left. And your boss was doing the same thing to his boss, and everyone was working hard and staying late. You would come in on a Saturday and a Sunday at General Electric. It was a wonderful time to be in the office. Everyone else was there, and the phones weren't ringing. That's what Jack said. He said today the problem is that young people don't even think that overtime is an option. You have to go and ask them. They don't volunteer it. They want to get the first train out of there as soon as they can. When you go and ask them if they would kindly please work overtime tonight, they then say, hang on a moment, and they pick up the phone and they phone somebody. And whoever they happen to get on the other side of the line is a conversation. Yeah, well, you know, he's asking, and well, I know, but, you know. And eventually he'll turn around to you and he'll say, I'm sorry, I can't. How does that, who's on the other side of the line? Is that the president of the country? Of course it isn't. And we'll look at work-life balance in a moment, because that's what Jack Welch is talking about. There's a new generation of young people who've come into the workplace and have changed that workplace. Some people call them Generation X, born in the 1970s and 80s, and I suppose into the 90s now, the millennial kids. Whatever you call them, you know who I'm talking about. What do they want? Well, that's an important question, isn't it? Because that's going to help you as you interact with them, Anthony, and speak to them, Anthony, and make sure that they answer very important questions, Anthony. That will help you as you connect with their pain and offer them pleasure, as Justin told us. What is it that they're looking for? Well, I think it's very simple. You see, these guys grew up in a time when the contract was changing. The old contract went something like this. I will come and work for you. Preferably, you are a big company where I can get a good job and stay there. And I will come and I will work for you, and I will sell your products to your clients using your systems at your price in your way. I might even wear your tie, even if it's damn ugly. I will fit into your mold. Now, in exchange for making myself that unmarketable, think about it. The more you push yourself into one system and get yourself into one space, the less marketable you are. So in exchange for making myself that unmarketable, what are you going to do? That was the question the employee asked the company. And the company's answer was simple. We will give you security. We will give you security. We will be around forever. You can trust in that. Loyalty for security. How many companies can offer you security these days? Even the companies who are supposed to be selling security as a product. It's a dangerous question to ask in this audience, I realize that, because you've got all those answers, right? This sounds like an objection and you've got the answer. But go with me on this one. There are very few companies that can offer you security. I'd argue there are none. I started my working corporate life at KPMG doing articles. At that stage, there were the big five. Now, of course, there are only the big four. And if a company that size and a global institution like Anderson can disappear in 3 months, well, then anybody can in any industry. If you can't offer security, say today's young people, why are you asking for loyalty? The new contract doesn't include the concept of security. The problem is that when you take out your wallet to write the paycheck for these talented young people, you're still putting security on the table. And they go, that's worthless. There's nothing there. You've got to offer them something else. That's what this presentation is about. It's kind of a strategic presentation. Possibly strange that you put a strategic presentation at the end of a long day, once everybody's kind of been rammed full of technical and practical advice. But hopefully you see the logic, that having got some practical advice, hopefully some motivation and inspiration, even if you're feeling a little bit tired right now, that we end with a strategic view. How are you going to take your business, what you do, 5, 10, 20 years into the future? I'll be honest with you, if you're in your job just to make a quick buck over the next 3 or 4 years, then my presentation's not for you. But it's about how you're going to build a sustainable business that includes this young generation. Because, well, your business is getting older. It's getting older one day at a time. It's as old as you are. And it's getting older. It'll be older tomorrow morning. What are you going to do to bring that new blood in? Let me suggest that there's a story that might be helpful for you. The story is about a South African sheep farmer. Now, sheep farmers, as you know, spend a lot of their time looking after their farms, specifically the fences around their farms. We've all driven through the Karoo and seen those fences with a sort of herd of sheep, with half of them with their heads through the fence, you know, eating the grass on the other side because it's always a little bit greener over there. A farmer gets tax incentives and spends a hang of a lot of time making sure that the fences around his South African farm are intact so that the sheep know where the boundaries are and we keep people in. This farmer of ours decided to go and follow the Springboks on their recent tour down to the Tri-Nations countries. He watched the first half of the game and then he decided that there's better use of his time somewhere else, so he left and he went to visit a sheep farmer out in the outback. Now, I'm obviously making up the details of the story, but the facts of how the two different farms are farmed are absolutely true. Australian sheep farmers do not put fences around their farms. They do not have fences around the outside of their farms. The South African was amazed. He said, how do you keep the sheep in? The Australian, and I'll spare you in a fake Australian accent, the Australian answered, the Australian farmer on this big sheep station, as they're called in Australia, he said the following: sheep are stupid. The South African thought, yeah, and Australian sheep are the stupidest of the lot. But even as stupid as Australian sheep are, they know that in the outback, if you get too far away from water, you're dead. And even sheep know that. And so when we begin to see that the sheep are wandering off, we don't worry about the fences. We simply make sure that we provide water. We dig wells. And if the sheep are wandering off, it's an indication that our wells are not deep enough. And we jump in quickly and we dig a deeper well and make sure that the water we provide for them is crystal and clear and cool. Is it too late in the afternoon, or do you see where I'm going with the story? What would you prefer to be doing as you think of both your staff, your team members, and your clients? Would you prefer to be making sure the fences were intact, signing people into contracts like Telkom's desperately trying to get us to do before the competition comes? Are you locking people in and handcuffing them? Are you maybe even content that they stick their heads through the fence and look around a little bit as long as they can't get out? Or wouldn't you prefer to have all your clients clustered at the center, desperate to drink the cool water from your well, waiting for the next bit of refreshing that comes, looking inwards rather than outwards, clustered at the center? That's my story. And I hope it's a story that will live with you. You use it. Go back to the office and start talking about fences and wells. And see if you can turn some of your fences into wells.